Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the golden hour, Aries found himself drawn to the shimmering allure of the dress, a hidden treasure unveiled. The sunlight painted the walls with a crimson canvas as the sequins played with the rich rays, casting a spellbinding effect. With each deep breath, he embraced the bold move, knowing this dress would be more than just fabric on a body. Placing his hands on the delicate straps, Aries felt his heart flutter as he made the final adjustments. It was a spontaneous decision, the product of a late-night urge fueled by wine and long-buried desires. As the dress embraced his form, he knew this was more than just a fleeting desire. Time ticked away, marking the moments until the inevitable. Aries noted his impending fate, indicated by his timepiece. The company-wide virtual happy hour, a poor substitute for actual human connection during the pandemic, but at least an effort from management to maintain some sense of normalcy. He took a few tentative steps in the strappy heels he'd ordered to match the dress, wobbling slightly before finding his balance. The unfamiliar sensation of air against his legs made him acutely aware of every movement. Yet, there was something undeniably right about the feeling, like finally putting down a heavy backpack after carrying it for miles. The laptop waited on the kitchen counter, lid closed. Plenty of time to change back into the button-down shirt and khakis that served as his professional uniform at Meridian Analytics. No one would ever know. Just like always. The sharp ring of his phone startled him. His mother's name flashed on the screen, and he let it go to voicemail. Not now. This moment belonged to him alone. He paced the length of his apartment, gaining confidence with each step. The heels clicked satisfyingly against the hardwood floors. In the kitchen, he poured a glass of water, careful not to spill on the shimmering fabric. What if you didn't change back? The question formed unbidden in his mind. What if, just once, he attended a work function as the person he glimpsed in quiet moments? The thought sent his heart racing. Absurd. Career suicide. His colleagues respected him as Aries Michaels, the focused data analyst who'd earned a reputation for solving problems others couldn't crack, not as whoever this person in the mirror was. He glanced at the time again. 15 minutes. Just a few more moments of freedom before reality reclaimed him. In the bathroom, he carefully applied a touch of mascara, something else he'd ordered in that late-night shopping spree. His hands trembled slightly. The effect was subtle but transformative, making his eyes look larger, more expressive. Enough, he whispered to his reflection. Time to put it away. But instead of heading to the bedroom to change, he found himself wandering back toward the kitchen. The laptop sat there, innocuous. What harm would there be in just logging in early to the call? The camera would be off, of course. He could listen to the preliminary chatter, sip his water in his beautiful dress, and then quickly change before activating his video. Decision made, he opened the laptop and clicked the meeting link. A few faces already populated the grid. Meredith from marketing with her ever-present cat, Damien from sales backlit by his colorful collection of vinyl records, and Thomas, his team lead, fiddling with what appeared to be a new headset. Aries adjusted the volume, listening to their casual conversation about weekend plans and the latest company gossip. He took another sip of water, enjoying this small rebellion. In 5 minutes, he'd go change. But for now, this moment was his. Is that Aries? Hey man, you joining us? Thomas's voice suddenly came through clearer. Aries froze, ice flooding his veins. Slowly, his eyes drifted to the corner of the screen, where a small window showed. Impossibly, horrifyingly, his own image. The burgundy dress, the mascara, the expression of dawning terror. The camera was on. His hand flew to the keyboard, desperately searching for the video off button, but in his panic, he knocked the glass of water onto the keyboard. The screen flickered ominously. "Shit! Shit! Shit!" he hissed, grabbing a nearby dish towel and blotting frantically at the spreading liquid. When he looked back at the screen, more faces had joined the call. His department, the creative team, even Patricia Winters, the vice president of operations, her silver-framed glasses reflecting the light from her screen. Silence fell across the virtual gathering. Aries remained motionless, one hand still clutching the dish towel. 27 faces stared back at him. 27 colleagues seeing him, truly seeing him, for the first time. He could lie. Say it was a joke, a bet, a costume for a party later. His mind raced through excuses, none of them convincing.
"That color is absolutely stunning on you."
The voice belonged to Eleanor from accounting, her British accent distinctive even through the tinny laptop speakers. "The sequins catch the light beautifully," added Damien from sales, his expression free of mockery. Aries remained speechless, waiting for the other shoe to drop. For the snickers, the screenshots, the beginning of the end of his professional credibility. "My niece is transgender," Patricia Winters said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "She just started hormone therapy last year. Watching her finally become herself has been one of the most beautiful experiences of my life." The vice president adjusted her glasses, leaning closer to her camera. "Aries, that dress is fabulous, and you look lovely in it. Now, shall we start our happy hour? I believe Damien was about to tell us about his disastrous attempt at sourdough bread." Just like that, the conversation shifted. Damien launched into a story about exploding starter and flour-covered cats. People laughed. Someone shared their screen to show a proposed cocktail recipe. The meeting continued as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But everything had changed. Aries sat, motionless, still processing. His colleagues had seen him, really seen him, and responded not with rejection, but with acceptance. Even compliments. The fortress of fear he'd built over decades had been breached, and instead of the expected attack, he'd received something entirely unexpected. Safety. He gradually began to participate in the call, his voice soft at first, then stronger. No one commented when he excused himself briefly to fix his mascara, which had smudged from the tears he couldn't quite hold back. When he returned, Eleanor was polling everyone about their weekend plans. "I'm thinking about going shopping," Aries found himself saying. "I need more clothes like this." "Oh, you should check out that new boutique on Madison Avenue," Meredith suggested, her cat purring loudly in the background. "They have the most gorgeous selection of dresses, and the staff is incredibly helpful and discreet." The meeting stretched well beyond its scheduled hour, nobody seeming eager to disconnect. When it finally wound down, Patricia lingered as others logged off. "Aries, do you have a moment?" she asked. His stomach tightened. Here it came, the private conversation about professionalism and company image. When only the two of them remained, Patricia removed her glasses and smiled warmly. "I wanted to say thank you," she said. "Thank me? For what?" "For trusting us, even if it wasn't intentional. I've been trying to make Meridian more inclusive, but policies and sensitivity training only go so far. Real change happens when people feel safe enough to be themselves. She paused. Is there a different name you'd prefer we use? The question caught him off guard. A different name? He'd never allowed himself to consider it, had never imagined a scenario where he could openly express this part of himself.
I don't know yet,
he admitted.
This is all very new. At least, being open about it is new.
Patricia nodded. There's no rush, and if there's anything you need, support, resources, just someone to talk to, my door is always open. Virtually for now, but you know what I mean. After they disconnected, Aries sat in his kitchen for a long time, the burgundy dress still shimmering in the fading light. Something had broken open inside him. A door, long sealed shut, now standing ajar, inviting him to step through. He picked up his phone and, after a moment's hesitation, searched for the name Juliana. The meaning appeared on his screen. Youthful, downy soft. He said it aloud, testing the feel of it on his tongue. Juliana. It felt right. It felt like coming home. 2 weeks later, Aries, now privately thinking of himself as Juliana, sat at the same kitchen counter, dressed in slacks and a blue button-down for a regular team meeting. The burgundy dress hung in the closet alongside 3 new acquisitions, a navy sheath dress, a forest green wrap dress, and a black pencil skirt with a cream blouse.
So, we're looking at a 15% increase in engagement across all digital platforms,
Thomas was saying, sharing his screen to display a colorful chart.
Aries, your analysis of the demographic breakdown was spot on.
The campaign is resonating particularly well with the 35 to 49 bracket.
Thanks,
Juliana replied, still using Aries' deeper voice for work calls. I think we could push that even higher if we adjust the messaging slightly for the evening social media slots. The meeting continued. All business. No one mentioned the happy hour revelation. At first, Juliana had been relieved, but as days passed with no acknowledgement, a new worry emerged. Had they collectively decided to pretend it never happened? Was this their version of acceptance? Polite denial? After the meeting, Thomas sent a private message.
Got a minute for a quick chat?
Juliana's pulse quickened. Sure. Thomas's familiar face appeared on the screen, his standard plaid shirt and messy brown hair as reassuringly consistent as always.
Hey, I wanted to check in, he began. We haven't really talked since the happy hour, and I just wanted to make sure you're doing okay, that you feel supported.
The knot in Juliana's chest loosened slightly. I'm figuring things out. It's been a lot to process. Thomas nodded. I can't even imagine. Look, I don't want to overstep, but I noticed you've been presenting traditionally at our meetings since then. I want you to know that however you want to show up, whatever makes you comfortable, is completely fine with the team. With me. I appreciate that, Juliana said carefully. I guess I've been waiting to see if that night was a one-off thing, if the acceptance was real or just people being polite in the moment.
It's real,
Thomas said without hesitation. At least from me, and from everyone I've spoken with. Actually, Eleanor was asking if she'd made you uncomfortable by commenting on your dress. She was worried she'd been inappropriate. Juliana laughed, a genuinely surprised sound. Are you serious? Her compliment was the first thing that made me feel like I wasn't about to be fired on the spot. No one's getting fired, Thomas assured her. Patricia has made that abundantly clear to everyone. Whatever journey you're on, Meridian supports you. He paused.
And so do I. as your friend.
After they disconnected, Juliana sat in silence for several minutes. Then, decision made, she walked to the closet and removed the navy sheath dress. The next team meeting was scheduled for Thursday. Maybe it was time to take another step forward. Thursday's team meeting found Juliana wearing the navy dress, hair neatly styled, with subtle makeup enhancing features that now felt increasingly familiar in the mirror. The seconds before enabling the camera were excruciating, heart pounding so loudly it seemed impossible the microphone wouldn't pick it up. Then the camera was on, and there she was, in the grid of faces. Thomas smiled and continued his introduction without missing a beat. Damien gave a subtle thumbs up from his square. The meeting proceeded, focused entirely on the quarterly goals and upcoming client presentations. Only at the end, as people were preparing to disconnect, did Thomas pause.
Before we go, Aries has something to share with the team.
They had discussed this beforehand, a brief, prepared statement that Juliana had rehearsed a dozen times.
Thank you, Thomas.
She began, her voice higher than usual but still recognizably her own. I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge what some of you already know. I'm in the process of transitioning. As part of that journey, I'll be using the name Juliana and she, her pronouns going forward. She took a breath, steadying herself. I'm grateful for the support I've already received from many of you, and I appreciate your patience as I navigate this change. I'm still the same colleague you've worked with, still passionate about data analysis and still terrible at fantasy football. This earned a few chuckles, easing the moment. Thank you for listening, and for making Meridian a place where I can bring my whole self to work.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Juliana,
Thomas said, emphasizing her name with natural ease. We're all here for you. Various messages of support filled the chat. Congrats on living your truth! The navy is definitely your color.
Does this mean you'll finally make better fantasy football picks?
Juliana laughed, wiping away a tear that threatened to ruin her carefully applied mascara.
Not a chance, Damien. My fantasy football skills are tragically consistent, regardless of my gender.
As people began logging off, several lingered to offer personal words of encouragement. Eleanor invited her to a virtual lunch the following week. Meredith shared the contact information for a support group her sister had found helpful during her own transition. By the time the last colleague disconnected, Juliana felt simultaneously exhausted and exhilarated. She closed the laptop and leaned back in her chair, allowing herself to fully experience the moment. For the first time in her professional life, she had shown up as her authentic self and been embraced for it. The journey ahead would undoubtedly have challenges. Family, for one. She still hadn't returned her mother's call from that fateful evening, nor any of the subsequent ones. The wider world beyond Meridian's surprisingly accepting bubble. The complex, sometimes painful process of physical transition, if she decided to pursue that route. But in this moment, sitting in her apartment in a navy dress that made her feel both professional and true to herself, Juliana allowed herself to feel something unfamiliar. Hope. The weeks turned into months. Autumn arrived, painting the city in warm hues that reminded Juliana of her gradually growing collection of clothing in rich, jewel tones. The wardrobe transition had become a metaphor for her broader journey, thoughtful, deliberate choices that aligned her outer appearance with her inner truth. Work continued remotely, with Juliana now exclusively presenting as herself in meetings. Her colleagues had adapted to her name and pronouns with varying degrees of ease. Occasional slip-ups occurred, immediately followed by sincere apologies. What mattered most was the consistent effort, the clear message that her identity was respected. The quarterly review loomed on the horizon. the first major company-wide presentation since her coming out. Juliana had been assigned to present the data analytics portion, a recognition of her expertise that both honored and terrified her. Standing before the entire company, including executives she rarely interacted with, would be the most public professional moment of her transition thus far.
"You've got this,"
Thomas assured her during their prep session.
"Your analysis is solid, and you know this material inside out."
"It's not the content I'm worried about," Juliana admitted, adjusting the emerald green blouse she'd paired with black slacks for the day. Her auburn hair, growing out from its previous shortcut, was now long enough to style in a feminine pixie that softened her features. "It's everything else." Thomas's expression softened with understanding.
"The visibility?"
"Exactly. Most of the company has only interacted with me as Aries. The entire finance team, most of R&D, the West Coast offices.
This will be their first time seeing me as Juliana. And they'll see what the rest of us see,"
Thomas said firmly.
"A brilliant analyst who happens to look much better in jewel tones than most of us could ever hope to."
Juliana laughed, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. "I have been told that emerald is my color."
"It absolutely is,"
Thomas agreed. "Now let's go through the presentation one more time. I want you focused on the data during the actual meeting, not worrying about anything else." The morning of the quarterly review, Juliana stood before her closet, contemplating her options. The navy dress was a safe choice, professional, subdued, already worn for team meetings. The burgundy cocktail dress that had started everything was too formal, too evening for a daytime presentation. Her hand lingered on a recent purchase, a structured teal shift dress with 3/4 sleeves and a modest neckline. She hadn't worn it for any work functions yet. The color was bold without being flashy, professional without being severe. "Today's the day for courage," she told her reflection, removing the dress from its hanger. An hour later, she sat at her desk, the teal dress complemented by simple gold earrings and a delicate necklace. Her makeup was polished but restrained. Foundation to smooth her complexion, mascara to enhance her eyes, a touch of blush, and a natural rose lipstick. She looked like any professional woman preparing for an important presentation. The meeting link blinked on her calendar. With one deep breath, she clicked to join. The virtual conference room filled quickly. Familiar faces from her team nodded in greeting. Others, who hadn't seen her since her transition began, showed momentary surprise before offering smiles or professional nods. In the corner of the screen, Patricia Winters gave her a subtle thumbs up. The CEO, Richard Harrington, called the meeting to order. "Thank you all for joining our quarterly review. We have a full agenda today, so let's dive right in. First up, we'll hear from marketing about the summer campaign results, followed by data analytics with their insights on customer engagement patterns." Juliana listened attentively to the marketing presentation, taking notes and preparing mentally for her turn. When the screen was finally shared with her, she took a steadying breath and began. "Good morning, everyone. For those I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, I'm Juliana Michaels from the data analytics team." Her voice was clear and confident, the hours of practice evident in her delivery. "Today, I'll be walking you through our findings on customer engagement across platforms, with particular focus on the demographic shifts we've observed since implementing the new content strategy." She navigated through her slides with precision, explaining complex data patterns in accessible terms, highlighting key insights, and presenting actionable recommendations. As she spoke, she gradually became aware of something remarkable. No one was staring at her appearance. They were listening to her analysis, engaging with her ideas, respecting her expertise. "In conclusion," she said 20 minutes later, "we're seeing unprecedented engagement from previously untapped demographic segments, particularly in the 35 to 49 and 50-plus brackets. Our recommendation is to continue the current strategy while implementing the refinements outlined on slide 15, which should increase conversion rates by an estimated 12 to 14% in the next quarter." She finished her presentation and opened the floor for questions. They came rapidly: thoughtful inquiries about methodology, requests for elaboration on specific points, suggestions for additional analyses. Throughout the Q&A, Juliana felt herself fully inhabiting her professional identity. Her gender neither a distraction nor a focus, but simply part of who she was. "Excellent presentation, Juliana," Richard Harrington said when the questions concluded. "Your team's insights are precisely what we needed to inform the next phase of our strategy. I'd like to schedule a follow-up with you and Patricia to discuss implementing those refinements you mentioned." "Thank you, sir. I'd be happy to dive deeper into the data with you both." As the meeting continued with the next department's report, Juliana allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. She had faced one of her biggest professional fears and emerged not just unscathed, but affirmed. Her expertise had taken center stage, not her gender identity. Later that afternoon, an email arrived from Richard Harrington himself. "Juliana, your presentation today was exceptional, clear, insightful, and actionable. The company is fortunate to have your analytical mind guiding our data strategy. Patricia has spoken highly of your contributions throughout this transitional period, both personally and professionally. I want to echo her sentiment that Meridian is committed to supporting you and all our employees in bringing their authentic selves to work. I look forward to our follow-up discussion next week. Best regards, Richard Harrington, CEO, Meridian Analytics." Juliana read the email twice, letting its significance sink in. The CEO of the company had taken the time to not only praise her work, but explicitly acknowledge and affirm her transition. It was more than she could have hoped for when that camera accidentally turned on months ago. The annual fiscal year wrap-up meeting fell on a crisp December morning. Juliana chose a deep purple wrap dress for the occasion, paired with black tights and ankle boots, a concession to the winter weather. Her auburn hair, now grown to chin length, was styled in soft waves that framed her face. The hormone therapy she'd started 3 months prior had begun to soften her features, redistributing weight in subtle but meaningful ways that made her reflection increasingly aligned with her internal self-image. The past 6 months had brought challenges alongside the triumphs. Her mother had finally stopped asking when this phase would end, though their relationship remained strained. 2 longtime friends had drifted away, uncomfortable with her transition despite their initial supportive words. The complex medical and legal processes of gender transition required endless patience and paperwork. But there had been unexpected joys, too. Eleanor from accounting had become a close friend, their weekly virtual lunches evolving into occasional masked, socially distanced walks in the park. Thomas had introduced her to his sister, who ran a support group for transgender women. And, most surprisingly, Juliana had found herself becoming something of a mentoring resource for Meridian, consulted by HR about making the workplace more inclusive, and occasionally speaking with other employees, questioning their own gender identities. As she prepared for the fiscal year meeting, the largest company gathering before the holiday break, Juliana reflected on how far she'd come since that accidental revelation. From terror to tentative steps to growing confidence, each moment had built upon the last, creating a foundation for her authentic life. The meeting began with Richard Harrington's overview of the company's performance. Despite the unprecedented challenges of this year, Meridian has not just survived but thrived. Our adaptability, innovation, and most importantly, our people, have made this possible. Department by department, the achievements of the year were highlighted. When it came time for data analytics, Thomas gave the main presentation while Juliana prepared to deliver the forward-looking strategy portion. And now, Thomas said, Juliana Michaels will present our vision for data integration in the coming fiscal year. Juliana shared her screen, displaying a sleek, visually engaging presentation that represented weeks of work.
Thank you, Thomas. As we look toward the future, data analytics has identified 3 key areas of opportunity that align with Meridian's growth objectives. She moved through the presentation with the confidence of someone who knew her material thoroughly and believed in its value. The questions that followed were engaged and thoughtful, colleagues building on her ideas rather than challenging their foundation.
This is exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need, Patricia commented as the Q&A wound down. Juliana, I'm particularly impressed by the cross-departmental integration you've outlined. That holistic approach is going to be critical in the coming year. As the meeting concluded, Richard Harrington addressed the company one final time before the holiday break.
Before we sign off, I want to acknowledge something important. This year has asked each of us to adapt in ways we never imagined, both professionally and personally. What's remarkable is how Meridian has not just adapted but grown stronger through these changes. He paused, his gaze seeming to meet each person through the screen. We've seen exemplary leadership at all levels. I want to particularly recognize the data analytics team, whose insights have guided many of our most successful pivots this year. As people began saying their goodbyes and holiday wishes, Juliana received a private message from Patricia. Could you stay on for a moment? When only Patricia, Richard, and Thomas remained on the call, Richard spoke.
Juliana, we wanted to have a quick word with you before the break. As you know, Rajesh is retiring in March, and we've been considering restructuring the data analytics division.
Juliana nodded, uncertain where this was heading. Rajesh was the division director, several levels above her current position.
We'd like to create a new role,
Patricia continued.
Director of Predictive Analytics, focusing specifically on the integration strategy you presented today. It would involve building a new team and working directly with the executive committee on implementation.
We believe you're the right person for this position, Richard added. Your technical expertise is unquestionable, but more importantly,
you've demonstrated exceptional leadership during a period of personal transition. That kind of authenticity and courage is exactly what Meridian values in its leadership team.
Juliana sat in stunned silence, processing what she was hearing. A directorship, a seat at the leadership table, building a team around her vision.
This is unexpected,
she finally managed. I'm honored you'd consider me.
Take the holiday break to think about it,
Patricia said warmly.
We can discuss details in January, but I want you to know that this offer is based entirely on your professional contributions and leadership potential. You've earned this opportunity, Juliana.
After the call ended, Juliana remained at her desk, emotions washing over her in waves. 6 months ago, she'd feared losing her job when colleagues glimpsed her true self. Now, those same colleagues were offering her a leadership role based not despite her journey, but partially because of the qualities she'd demonstrated throughout it. She glanced at the framed photo now sitting on her desk, a picture taken at a small outdoor gathering for Eleanor's birthday 2 months ago. In it, Juliana stood between Eleanor and Thomas, laughing at something off-camera, the autumn sunlight catching the auburn highlights in her hair. She looked happy. She looked authentic. She looked like herself. The journey wasn't over. There would be more challenges, more growth, more moments of both doubt and triumph. But as Juliana closed her laptop and stood up, smoothing the purple fabric of her dress, she knew with certainty that whatever came next, she would face it as her complete self.
personal truth and professional life, no longer divided but beautifully, powerfully unified. In the window's reflection, she caught a glimpse of herself, auburn hair, jewel-toned dress, confident posture, and smiled at the woman looking back. Juliana Michaels, Director of Predictive Analytics. It had a pretty nice ring to it.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!